Hey there, Dave Duford, Ford Insurance Group, where I help and train agents nationally to sell final expense Medicare and annuities, both face-to-face and over the phone. If you'd like to learn more about my agency, go to davidduford.com/FAQ to learn more. Thank you so much for joining me. Today's topic is, how do you make these insurance prospecting, can't speak right today, door knocking mistakes? So the purpose of this video, this live stream really, is to kind of give you some breakdown of exactly what I see as the most and biggest mistakes that agents new to the business, even experienced agents, make when they prospect for insurance business door to door. And this could be using even like a cold call strategy. A lot of what we'll be talking about today is using some kind of lead-based strategy. And these are mistakes that are so common that once fixed, they can have an amazing impact on your ability to convert more of your approaches at the door into presentations. So we're going to jump right into this and kind of diagnose the big things. We're going to go about kind of diagnosing the initial beginning of the door knock approach, which really isn't related to scripting. Then we're going to talk about the scripting itself, where I see the biggest mistakes made. And then we'll conclude with kind of an overarching fundamental reality of door knocking. Again, whether you cold call or you work a particular type of lead, no matter what it is that you sell, that really you need to follow through on if you want to get the most out of your door knocking activity. And again, if you guys have questions as we go through today's training, just leave the questions in the chat below. I'll be absolutely happy to get to it. Also, just want to do some shameless plugs here real quick. EliteAgentSummit.com. Our next event is in Nashville on Friday, May 27th, if you'd like to check it out. It is $50 to attend to get a ticket. It's going to be downtown Nashville at the Topgolf. We've got a bunch of top producers coming in. Love to have you there. Again, EliteAgentSummit.com. And then last but not least is I'm doing a final expense carrier and underwriting training event on Friday, May 20th. It's an all-day event. We're going to look at the most popular final expense carriers for telesales face-to-face. We're going to talk about replacement training. We're going to talk about how to underwrite clients effectively. All of this is going to be on that one-day event. It's a $50 to $100 ticket, depending on which package you get. Go to davidduford.com/FECUM, so FECUM, .com, in order to learn more. Okay. So let's talk about the biggest issues when it comes to the actual act of door knocking. I think the biggest thing that, at least on a residential basis, if we're just taking a lead, we're running appointments, we're seeing people, probably a common mistake that I hear is how people actually knock on the door. Not so much even before you say anything. Big mistakes are made before you even approach the door. So I want to clarify some things where I think agents commonly make mistakes that they need to make sure that they're not doing so they can get more people to actually answer the door, right? So the first thing is ringing the doorbell. Guys, if you're ringing the doorbell, especially if you're in the final expense, like a lot of my audience is, the final expense market, you're going to find a lot of people aren't going to answer the door. Now, why wouldn't they answer the door when you're ringing the doorbell? Predominantly is because they can't hear the thing because it's broke. About half the time when I approached a house selling final expense, the bell wasn't even working. And if you just rely on the doorbell to get them to answer, half the time they're not going to hear you. So when we talk about door knocking, understand you actually want to door knock the door. You want to actually use your fist, the knuckles, the mid knuckles, I guess, right? And you want to bang the door down to get their attention. That leads me to another common mistake that I hear agents make, literally hear, is not being able to actually hear the door knock. Call me crazy, but I think that you can transmute a particular type of frame of mind or kind of your presence by just how you door knock. So there's a couple of different ways to door knock. There's what the old timers will call a shave and a haircut. It sounds something like this. I don't know if you can hear it over the microphone. It sounds like, or you can just do hard knock 7 to 11 times. Both of those work pretty well. I prefer the second choice because the shave and a haircut or whatever it is sounds like a salesman's at my door. But I am a salesman, so I'm a little bit more particular and biased. But your prospects probably aren't. When I knock on a door, though, I want to make sure that I'm heard, okay? And if you knock on a door, what you definitely don't want to do is knock softly, like 2 or 3 times, where the person on the other end may think maybe it's a rat running around in the walls, and they're like, what is that? Did I hear something? Maybe I didn't. And then they go back to playing Fortnite or whatever they're doing. You want to be heard, and you want people to stop and pay attention to you and come to the door and talk to you to see who this person is at the door. So when I door knock, and what I teach my agents to do is we ball our fist up and we knock with the first two knuckles, the pointer finger and the middle finger, to knock and rap on the door, okay? You've got to get their attention. Sometimes people, again, are seniors, right? In the final expense market, a lot of our prospects are, and they can't hear that well anyway. And if they're on the far end of the house, they may have a really hard time of actually hearing you. So you need to make sure that you knock with authority. I've been accused of being the feds or the cops when I knock, and I like that because most likely somebody's going to open the door if they think it's the feds or the cops, or they're going to jump out the back and, I'm not going to have a good chance of meeting them anyway. So knock loud to get their attention. Again, I think loud knocking is equivalent to what we do on the phone, which is called triple dialing, where I will triple dial the same contact until they pick up. You have to knock hard to be heard. Do not understate that. Another kind of related thing is how we knock is where do we actually initiate the door knock. If there's an opportunity to door knock at a side door instead of a front door, do that. Most people don't use their front door. They use their side door. And the side door is usually, and again, this is kind of a final expense thing, might be for other markets too, where people's kitchens are, where most people are closer to, whereas the front door, many times, that's where strangers go. So always try the side door when you knock on a door to get people to approach the door. So again, how you sound matters a lot when you door knock. And one other thing I'll say on door knocking is after I make the initial 7 to 11 door knocks, I like to step back. I don't like to get all up in their business at the door and they answer it and like my nose is sticking through the front door, right? I usually step back a little bit. I'm 6 foot tall. I don't want to be as, big and scary, so I kind of back down. Sometimes there's steps. I'll get down to their level a little bit. But either way, I back off and give people like their safe space distance, right? And then when they open the door, then I approach them and start to talk to them a little bit closer. But I always give them that distance just to not be perceived as a threat. If they don't answer the door at the first attempt at knocking, then instead of walking away, you don't want to do that. You want to try again. Some people may have thought they heard it, or maybe they're back in the bathroom somewhere, right? And they're cleaning up. Hopefully they wash their hands. And they'll be there once they pull their pants up or whatever, right? So I want to try to knock again. Don't just leave. Knock again. I like counting to 1001, 1002, all the way to like 1010, 1015. And then after the second attempt to knock, I may try the doorbell, but by the time I try again on the third time, I'm going to be yelling their name through the door and saying, Mr. Jones, are you there, Mr. Jones? Something like that. Sometimes people are skeptical. Who is this crazy person on my front doorstep? If I start yelling out their name, maybe they'll open up because I know who they are, right? So that's how we want to start the initial door knock. And again, you cannot not shortcut here. You want to not shortcut here at all. Make sure you're doing all of these elements to start the door knocking process to do it effectively. The next thing is body language. And this kind of has a multifaceted thing that you need to be aware of. So body language certainly is how you look and how you're perceived by your client, kind of one and the same. So the first thing I can say, this sounds like common sense stuff, but it really does make a difference. Don't go to the door and look like a bum, okay? Tuck in your shirt, at least dress business casual, khakis, jeans, and a tucked-in polo or button-down. If you want to wear like the top of a suit like what I've got, that's fine. It is overkill. I don't think you have to do that. I never did when I was in the field. But the point is that make sure you look like a professional, right? If you look like a bum when somebody answers the door or when you knock on the door, don't be surprised when they don't answer it, okay? So play the part of somebody who actually is a professional. Make sure when they actually answer the door, you actually make eye contact with them. Smile a little bit. Offer your hand to handshake. They may not take it, but these are kind of normal, civilized things that we do to exude signals of trust so our prospects don't distrust us, okay? Make sure you talk in an uplifting fashion. Don't be boring. Don't be monotonous. Don't be like looking around like, you're sketchy, because people are trying to read you in the moment before you say a word or before you get far saying anything to size you up and determine, should I talk to this dude or not, okay? So Do all that stuff. And one thing I'll say at the door, a couple of things walking to the door, kind of sort of related to body language, is make sure when you're walking to the door, especially if this is a house, more applicable than, say, an apartment, after you park your car in the driveway and you walk up to it, or even as you're approaching it, do the wave. There are some people who are looking out the window that catch you pulling into their driveway and they're peeking out the blinds. Wave at them like you see them, even though if you don't know they're there. And they are actually there, they'll be more obliged to answer the door because I got you, I saw you, right? Now, if you're at a door with an eye hole, little pro tip here, when the eye hole goes dark, that means somebody's big old head is in the way with their eye looking at you. There's your opportunity again to say, hey, how you doing? Let them know I see you, answer the door, and let's get the show on the road, okay? Now, so body language, the initial knock, let's say they actually answer the door. Yay. Oh, by the way, I'll mention this too. One other little pro tip here when door knocking is to use what's called delivery sticky notes. If you guys don't know what these are, do a Google search. There's a lot of different places you can buy these things. They're usually like a 4x6 sticky note. And it looks like some kind of delivery notice, right? We're delivering the package of information they request. That's why we can legitimately use these. We put our name on it. Usually has first, second, last delivery or final delivery. You always check final delivery, right? There's that little urgency and takeaway from using that. And then you put your contact information for them to contact you. We use this if they don't answer the door, because when they call us and our phone rings and we recognize them or they leave a voicemail, guess what? That means they're at the house. That means we can turn our car around and go see them and almost have a 100% success rate at door knocking them and hopefully getting in the door. So these sticky notes do a really good job of converting more of your attempts at trying to door knock to actually get in the door and help them. Okay, so I highly advise that you use these. They do help out a ton. Okay, so now let's say they actually answer the door. At this point, what do we do to get ourselves in the door? How do we start a presentation? Well, a couple of things I want to make sure that you guys are clear on. Number one, what we never do is sell the product at the door. This is a common mistake new agents make. They think they've got to sell the benefits, like if we're final expense agents, of whole life insurance. We got to sell the benefits of whatever it is that you're selling. We got to talk and sell the product. The problem with that approach is you're giving the ammunition to the prospect to turn you down. And they start to sense that you're all about selling them something, as opposed to problem solving or helping them out with their needs. And what I would advise you to do instead, the de facto strategy we use with our agents, teaching them how to get in the doors using leads or even cold calling, is sell the appointment, not the product. You see, you as a face-to-face agent have the most success closing an insurance policy when you're at the kitchen table, inside the house, talking to mom and pa or whoever your prospects are, where you can sit down, you've gotten past that initial resistance, skepticism, right? And now you've developed a connection with them. That only happens when you're actually in the house, not standing up at the door, okay? So your objective is not to sell the product, it's to sell the appointment. So let me give you a script here of how the, well, before I get to the script, I'm going to kind of talk about some things that are commonly screwed up based on the years of call reviews I've done, door knocking reviews, real life reviews, hot seats, etc. Let's see here. I'll go through the script first, and I think I can kind of think through this a little better when I rehearse the script. So when somebody answers the door, I always start by saying, hey, you're Miss Jones, right? Yeah, hey, you're the lady I'm looking for. My name is David Duford, and the reason I'm here is because you had sent this card back and you requested information about our new state-regulated final expense program. I'm here because they send me out to deliver the information you requested. All it takes is a few minutes to go over it with you. What you do with it's up to you. Why don't we sit out here on the porch, or should I come in and sit at the kitchen table? So that's the general kind of script that I use. Of course, the flags is just a prop of what the lead card would look like. But a couple of things I hear wrong a lot with the presentation. First of all, in the introduction, some agents don't say their full name. Sometimes they don't even say their name whatsoever. Well, guess what? You've got to break through trust issues at the door. And if you don't say your name, you're in trouble, okay? And you should say your first and your last name, not just your first name, all right? So, hey, my name is Dave Duford. And the transition there is telling them why I am there. I want them to know fairly quickly the reason that I am there. If you're using some kind of lead card, it's pretty straightforward. You show them the information they requested, they see their handwriting on the card. Or if you've got some form of digital leads, let's say, you just list it all on an Excel spreadsheet. You usually get a favorite hobby or an email that you can include with it. If I was cold calling for final expense, I'd say, hey, the reason I'm here is we sent these cards back out to everybody in the county about our new state-regulated final expense programs. They send me out to people who don't send these back to answer their questions and show them how these new programs work, and then continue to book it the same. But the point is, I need to explain why I'm there. A couple of things that happen here that sometimes get messed up in transition. What were my verbiage, or what was my words that I said to explain what it is that I do? I said state-regulated final expense program. Notice I didn't say life insurance, okay? We don't want to say the L word if we're selling life insurance, because what happens is, or the I word, L-I word, life insurance. If we say life insurance very early on in the appointment setting process, like over the phone or over the door knock process at the door, the constructive open-mindedness of the prospect totally breaks down. When somebody hears life insurance and you're a stranger at the door, what do they immediately think? They think you're a salesperson. They immediately think, I've got enough life insurance. I don't want to be sold today. I'm fine. Their brain shuts down critical thinking capabilities and looks for a way to exit. Okay. Now, they may not slam the door in your face, but they may say things like, I'm real busy. I'm all set. I've got enough life insurance, and you'll get a lot of objections. Yes, you can overcome them. But the way you avoid this is by describing what it is that you sell in a different manner. We don't teach our agents to say life insurance at the door, not because we're trying to deliberately obfuscate and confuse a client. We do it because we understand human behavior. That people, when they hear certain words, shut their brains down. They don't think anymore. They just decide, lizard brain reaction, I don't want life insurance, okay? So we call it state-regulated final expense programs because it describes what it is that we do, but in a unique way that gets people listening a little bit more closely, okay? So make sure that you're doing that. If you're saying life insurance at the door, you're only going to sit down with the laydowns. You won't talk to people who are kind of maybe interested, but it depends on the circumstances. You say enough to get them interested, but not too much to get you kicked out prematurely. Does that make sense? So after that, what I explained to them at the door is, it's my job. The reason I'm here, it's my job to deliver the information. Deliver the information, not sell you a policy. All right, I'm only delivering information, okay? What you do with it's up to you. That is kind of a no obligation type of scripting. Don't worry, I'm not here to harass you to buy anything. And then the close, which is very commonly missed, is not, are you interested? That is not the right close. And I hear this a lot from neophyte agents or agents who've never been properly trained. The thing is, you have to understand, in the sales business, you are the one that sets the frame of the interaction with the prospect. The language is powerful. You frame kind of how the client deals with you based on how you frame your questions, right? And when you give the client the option to say no, for example, when you say, are you interested? Can I come in? The option exists for the client to say no. And they're going to take it a lot more times because of that option. Well, how do you then provide an option without the option of a no, where your only options are yes or yes? So what we recommend is the alternate close strategy. This can be used all over the presentation, but right now at the door knock, what we do instead is we alternate a time of yes, 10 o'clock, or 2 yes o'clock. That's if we're setting appointments, excuse me. If we're at the door, it's, do you want to sit out in the porch, or can I come in and sit at the table? Sometimes I'll say, should I take my shoes off before I come in? That's a little bit different of an approach. It does work as well because we're giving the yes-no option about something other than the appointment. The important thing is not to give the option to the client to say no to the appointment. So should I take my shoes off before I come in? That assumes I'm coming in, and I make the yes-no about something other than that that's inconsequential. So either of those work. The point is, I don't give the client the option to say no to my appointment, all right? And what you will find with this strategy, you're going to get into more doors this way. Again, a lot of agents don't want to be rude. They don't want to be presumptive. Your mama taught you not to be rude, and assume that you know everything, right? The world doesn't revolve around you, Dave. That's what my mom told me forever. So, of course, I'm like Mr. Polite. And it took me a hell of a long time to not do this anymore. But bottom line, take it from me, if you just wipe away that initial politeness that a lot of us on the call here has, you'll do a lot better with this. And your clients won't feel stressed or pressured or worried that you're pushing them around, okay? So, yeah, and so that's the main thing. Now, again, some other mistakes that happens within the presentation or the door knocking script is you'll start to get agents who start to sell the product. They start to tell you how wonderful the product is and how the rates never go up, the coverage never cancels, blah, 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 right? Again, we don't want to do that. We just want to sell the appointment so we can get into the door later and then sell the product, okay? So the last thing here is knowing that you've got to rebut objections, okay? It's not enough to just depend on the power of your opening script to get into all the doors. You're going to get pushback from your prospects. It is a normal course of action. When you catch people off guard, they will react in ways to maybe conserve the risk of dealing with a salesperson, or maybe they've got their doubts and they're manifesting as this like I'm busy stuff, right? So you always need to be in a position comfortable enough to be ready to rebut those objections you hear at the door. The cool thing with what we teach, and I'm going to teach the rebuttal script here right now, is a fail-proof strategy that deals with the most common objections you hear at the door. And the 5 most common objections, if I can remember from memory, are I'm busy, I've already got life insurance, can you mail me something? What are the other ones? I'm broke. I think there's one more I'm thinking of. Either way, somebody in the chat throw it in if you don't mind. But with all of those objections, the strategy we use is called the ask strategy. We A, answer the objection, we S, sell the appointment, and then we C, close to get in the door, with the close being the least followed through part of the script that most agents screw up, okay? So if somebody says, Dave, I've already got life insurance, the rebuttal to that is simple. No problem, Mr. Prospect. All I need is 5 minutes to do my job, and what you do with this information is up to you. Why don't we sit out on the porch, or should I come in and sit at the table? So I've not even breathed any oxygen into that flame of an objection they give me about life insurance and continued to go ahead and book the appointment. Well, let's go through a couple others of these objections so you can see how well it works. I'm busy. No problem, Mr. Prospect. All I need is 5 minutes to show you how this works, and what you do with it's up to you. Should I take my shoes off before I come in? Works too. I need something mailed to me. No problem, Mr. Prospect. All I need is 5 minutes to show you how this program works, and what you do with it's up to you. Why don't we sit out here on the porch and talk, or should I come in and sit at the couch? And then what was the other one? I'm broke. Hey, that's okay, Mr. Prospect. All I need is 5 minutes to do my job, and what you do with it's entirely up to you. Should I take my shoes off before I come in? You see how simple that is? And this is profoundly important, especially when you're learning the skill of selling and then dealing with pushback. A script that can handle most anything is extremely valuable because it simplifies the learning process. And one of the things, like in sports, you know, we're all kind of armchair quarterbacks here. Like, we know what to say in a comfortable environment as we watch a football game, but like getting out there in the midst of, you know, tens of thousands of screaming fans and dealing with the onslaught of the game itself and the mindset, like, it's a lot harder to execute in the moment, thinking on your feet. And likewise, when we do this in person, we want to make sure we use an objection that is foolproof, and one that's simpler to use tends to be better because it's easier to remember, right? It's like using the same play for no matter what it is that we're experiencing, okay? Yeah, I need to talk to my kids. No problem, Mr. Prospect. All I need is 5 minutes to show you how these programs work. What you do with it's up to you. Why don't we sit out here in the porch, or can I come in? Doesn't matter. I don't care what they say. The script works wonderfully. I'm sure there's an objection out there that's kind of out of left field, of course, so it's not perfect for everything. But for what you'll experience 95% of the time, it works wonderfully. So, again, the last thing I want to tell you guys is the big issue that I get with this, especially as you start to rebut and then the client pushes back as the tensions raise, the concerns increase, and agents get nervous and they don't show the full leadership and conviction of closing on those rebuttals. So we hear somebody say, hey, that's fine. I just need a few minutes to show you how this works, and whatever you do with it's up to you. But notice right there's no close in that example script, right? And what will happen is it lingers. The prospect's kind of like, okay, and they still feel the same way. They're kind of at the pinnacle of doing something, and it's with the close that gets them to completely commit and then let you in and say, all right, well, I'm not buying anything today. That's fine. Should we sit at the couch, or let's go to the kitchen table then. So the point is, always make sure you're closed. And if there's one thing to take away from this, handling those objections at the door, you got to close on every rebuttal. Because as the tensions rise, you'll feel like you'll want to pull back and not be rude. Just close, okay? And those are the biggest mistakes. Oh, the last thing here, I think above all else, probably the most fundamental issue that I see is ultimately having expectations that aren't aligned with reality. You're going to get people who aren't going to let you in, even if you do everything I've described right and you do none of the wrong things. But the way that you manifest your opportunity in this business is through numbers. It's the law of large numbers. There's safety in numbers. And if you're going to door knock, whether you're doing it cold or whether you're doing it off of leads, you can't just do a couple and then decide the system sucks. That's not how it works. The vast majority of the time, you're going to hear pushback. You're not going to get a lot of doors in, okay? And all of our numbers vary by person, of course. But ultimately, the point is you can't just do a couple of these a day and then render judgment on it being good or bad. You've got to put the effort in. For example, I've told cold callers for years, if you're going to cold call and expect results, you got to do 30 door knocks a day. 30, yes, 30. To maybe get 3 appointments to sit with, okay? So 27 of them tell you to go to hell or don't tell you anything at all, right? But the point is, to get to those numbers that we're talking about, you got to put the effort in. To get the outputs, you got to have the inputs, right? Now, with working doors, typically on a lead, it's like 1 out of 4 to 1 out of 8, depending on the type of lead, the type of agent, right? So the success rate's a little bit higher. But hopefully you guys can see what I'm saying. The effort has to be there for any of this stuff to work, because a lot of the times it won't, because it's just the opportunity's not there. People push back. But for when the inkling of an opportunity exists, and you got to put the numbers in to find those inklings, following all these directions and avoiding all the mistakes is the way that you win this game of door knocking. Okay, some questions from the chat here. Hope you guys enjoyed the training. What has the best effect for final expense? Just cold calling or setting the appointment the previous day before going to the door? So just some language clarifications. Cold calling is just when you don't have a card that they sent back. They didn't request information. We knock on a door. We'll knock on doors of people who sent back cards, but we don't call that technically cold calling. They did request the information. We're just following up with them, right? That's not a cold call. That's a warm door knock, okay? So if we look at it that way, door knocking our leads versus calling and setting in appointments with our leads, I would say as a face-to-face agent, you're going to get more appointments door knocking. Why is that the case? A lot of people don't answer the phone anymore. A lot of people, when they answer, are skeptical. A lot of people, when they answer, are distracted, and they just render you just like any other telemarketer. Whereas if you show up at the door in person, generally speaking, most people set aside the facade of being tough and are usually civil. Usually, 99% of the time. Some people are just assholes, but the vast majority of them are pretty nice. And they will hear you out. And you have a much better chance of converting somebody into an appointment when really they don't have to sit there and delay about it and just no-show you the next day. But with that said, we absolutely believe, at least at my agency at DeFord Insurance Group, that appointment setting is vital, and we encourage agents to do it. It does make things more efficient. But understand, you can make good money in final expense, at least, simply door knocking your leads, and that's completely fine. How do you feel about cold calling small businesses such as the gas stations or liquor stores to talk to the owner? Hey, I lobotomize. I think with this new sales and marketing system we're coming up with, I think it can be a profoundly effective opportunity. Luis and I, Luis does Medicare and health insurance. We kind of put our heads together over the past month or two, and we're going to roll out with a sales and marketing system designed to target small business owners. The concept is simple. We use a plan called ICRA. We go in and pitch it to the agency, to the owner of the business, and they either fund a setup tax-free to the employees to help them kind of use as like payments for their insurance, if there are any. But even if they don't even do that and they just initiate it, it triggers a special election period for all of the employees off season, no matter what their income is. And you can start them with an ACA plan. It's a beautiful strategy. And we're looking at it to kind of target kind of like businesses that have more lower income workers, like hotels, gas stations would be perfect. And it allows you to scale the health insurance sales to a higher extent and the prospect without using any kind of lead cost. Plus, it opens the door to cross-selling life insurance. It opens the door to getting the business on the owner, who usually has a little bit of money and will buy life insurance as well, maybe even health insurance too. So I'm super excited about it. We're going to be getting back to that and probably doing a video on that and publishing in the next couple of weeks. So more on that soon. I need to talk to my husband. No problem. All I need is 5 minutes to show you how this works. What you do with it's up to you. You want to sit here in the porch, or should I come in? One of the other works there too. Now, I need to talk to my husband. We mostly hear at the close. Usually we can get in the door even if the hubby isn't there. What we find out though, and this is kind of a separate issue, but I'll address it. In the midst of giving a presentation face-to-face, if we found out the other spouse isn't at the house right now, they're out somewhere, I don't pitch. I come back later. I say, hey, okay, well, what we find with most people who are looking for insurance, even if it's just for themselves, they want to have their spouse along, because let's face it, if you're dead, the money's probably going to them. They're going to be very involved. They're going to want to have their input too. So I'm going to come back later today. Would y'all be free today at 6, or would later tonight at 8 work better? So I just go to rebook the appointment, because I think it's a fool's errand on a face-to-face basis when we can get back in the house with a little more success rate to not pitch without the other person. That's unlike telesales, where it's just so hard to get people on the phone. We just pitch no matter what we have, whether the spouse is at the house or not. But when it comes to face-to-face, I'm rebooking. I'm not going to try to do it without the other spouse there. Okay. What do you bring with you, an iPad, or do you only go in with a notepad and then go back to the car for qualifying? Hey, Marco, yeah. So what I do on a door knock is I leave all my junk in the car. I'll just walk up with the information about the lead card. I'll knock on the door, wait for them to answer. And when they agree to let me in, I'll say, hey, let me shut my car off, and they'll come back in. That's only if I'm at a household. Like if I'm in a risky part of town, I'm going to lock my stuff up and carry it to the door. I'm not going to be dumb. Or if I'm in an apartment complex. So it depends on the circumstances, right? So bottom line, though, I try to bring as little as possible. I don't want to look like a salesperson, right? That's the idea. Okay. Hey, George, what's up? Thanks for being here. Hey, Tracy, thanks for saying they requested the information. I believe that is so important. Remember, they ask us to follow up with them. That's 100% right. Remember, the psychology you have to bring at the door is that you're not cold calling when you got a lead card, at least. You're responding to what they ask for. They solicited you. You're only doing your job. It's your job to deliver this information. You didn't get called out here. You didn't want to show up to this house randomly. They requested it, okay? And the only reason you're going to their door is because that's the way to get the highest success rate in doing your job that they requested you to do. So I think this kind of mindset helps, because a lot of the times, of course, it's like, oh, I got to knock on a door. It's scary and stuff. And I get it. I felt the same thing too. We all do. But having this mindset, reminding yourself, you're just doing your job. It's your job. It's your job. Helps you overcome some of this kind of attrition or resistance issue. Okay, great, Kevin. Nice to meet you, man. Kevin, thanks for being here. All right, guys. Well, that's a little training here today. Hope it helps you out. If you guys can help with anything else, feel free to leave a comment in the chat or the comment box below. Of course, I recruit agents nationally to sell final expense, Medicare, annuities, or ACA health insurance under 65. If you'd like to learn more, go to daviddufour.com/start. I've just updated daviddufour.com/FAQ. If you go there, you'll get a great overview on how the contracting works for each of those products, to learn a little bit more about each of those products and kind of how we approach marketing and finding prospects for it. So that's a great way to start to do your due diligence, to see if my agency is a good fit for you. And until we meet again, y'all have a great rest of the day. Thank you, Gravity. That's a big old deal you got there. Nicely done, man. We'll see you around. Y'all take care. Bye.